Totally Football Show. One great sporting spectacle has just concluded. Another set of games is about to begin. It's out with Olympics and in with our league. From Jeux de Paris to Steve Parish. From gold medaling to VAR medaling. From Aussies throwing weird shapes to Ange at Spurs. Yes, ahead of Friday's Fulham Man United opening ceremony, we offer our Olympics for the season ahead. Gold. It's the Totally Football Show. All right.
Was that our limp picks?
Sorry.
No, it works. I was
did
just
it? Our
clarifying.
limp picks.
Our limp picks, as in like our inaccurate predictions.
That's the one.
Gotcha.
Okay then, listener. I hope that worked for you as well. It is Tuesday the 13th of August. 3 days to kick off, by my reckoning, in this brand new Premier League season. And in today, we have... Hello, Duncan Alexander.
Hello.
Hello, Tom Williams.
Hello, James.
And hello, Adrian Clarke.
Hi, everybody. You all right?
Yeah, that's right, listener. It is an all-star lineup. And rightly so, because we've got loads to discuss. Did everyone have a good summer, first of all?
Yeah, great summer. Euros was decent. Olympics were great. Weather's been crap.
Has the weather been bad?
Heat wave going on. What are you on about?
A 2-day heat wave.
It's been about a week.
No, come on. Weather's been... Can't go over in weather chat already. That's how excited we are.
By the way,
please bring the football back, please.
If you're one of the thousands watching this on our YouTube channel, the reason that Tom is wearing his
gone big
stylish...
Finally jumped the shark.
Over the summer, he's started playing keyboards in a synth pop duo.
Yeah, I've entered my Bono phase. No more eye contact, I've decided.
Yeah,
it's an infringement of my personal
there,
space.
Tapping away, not saying anything, impassive throughout the podcast. That's the vibe.
You're rocking it.
Yeah, well, let's see how we go.
Yeah.
All right. Adrian, good summer?
Very good.
Where do you stand on the weather right now?
Today, great.
Yeah, it's lovely.
But in January, it's been crap.
Duncan?
I think the weather's been fine. The summer's also been fine. The Olympics were fine. Yeah. But I'm very excited about the return of our league.
So on brand. So on brand.
What do we need to know today? What are the big questions we should be asking today with mere hours before Fulham Man United?
I think there's a lot in flux right now. As often, I mean, a lot of people would point out. Do you remember a few years ago when the Premier League did that thing of saying they were going to end the transfer window before the season started?
Oh yeah.
And expected every other league to do it, and then no one else did. So they were like, "Yeah, we'll probably scrap that." But it would be quite nice because I think the shape of a lot of the teams that we enjoy watching in this league will be slightly different come the end of the month. There hasn't really been huge changes at a lot of clubs yet, and I think quite a few of them do kind of need some surgery still. So, yeah, I think we're going to have to, in some respects, wait a couple of weeks before making sweeping statements, but that might not stop us today.
The bad news for you, Duncan, is that you are literally on the Premier League Predictions podcast.
Yeah.
No, but it's a fair point you make. Are there any questions that you are most kind of keen to ask, Tom?
Well, like the big question, the enormous question, is the Manchester City 115 charges question, particularly given that we learned yesterday that the case is going to start being heard next month with a verdict potentially to follow early in the new year, which is going to be seismic. I mean, if City are acquitted, then, it's less seismic.
Right.
But if they're done...
Yes. That obviously would be big.
That isn't... It's one of the biggest...
It will open a huge can of worms, you know.
I mean, in the history of English football...
Well, isn't this a can of worms that was already opened last season by the various points?
Yeah, but they'll point their fingers...
It's being open. It's being fully prized. The first few worms have been... poking through, but we're going to see all the worms.
Fishing worms come out.
Yeah. They'll get off with it.
Bigger worms, James, than you could even conceive of.
Right.
Are in that.
June scale.
Imagine June times 115. Right. That's what we're looking at.
I've got to say, I want to start wearing sunglasses too, because everything you say now takes on a drama.
Wow, and...
Like Marcus Tandy in El Dorado, yeah.
Seriously.
I can't believe I've waited all this time to find my vibe.
No, but you found it. That's the main thing. Here. All right, so we don't know about the Man City. We won't know for several months, probably. But in the meantime, let's kind of treat them like any other team and roll on. Adrian, anything you're most keen to see?
Question-wise, it's will the Premier League be as thrilling as it was last year? Record goals. Never before had we seen 1,100 goals in a season, and we got to 1,246. It was 162 extra goals last year, wasn't there? So it was quite extraordinary. Obviously, of course it's good. We won.
Not sure.
We won goals, didn't we?
Well, a lot of them came in quite dull Sheffield United games.
Okay. I see where you're going with that.
I'd say there's a sweet spot between, 2.5 a game, like in the Mourinho 2000s and last season. I think,
A lot of injury time goals because we had so much injury time, didn't we? So, but look,
a lot of injuries as well.
I like goals, so I would like to see us break the record again.
It's been quite. You talk about injury time. It's been quite good to see them just completely ignore that and not even say anything about it. Just go back to 2 or 3 minutes at the end of a half, and everyone just go, "All right, fine."
Yeah. So, right, I think they've got the message. Have they really? Have they changed their behaviour? No, but it's fine. No one likes it, so we'll just we gave it a go. You can't say we didn't, so let's just go back to how it was before.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm with Adrian on the goals thing, by the way.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
You like
Last season, I think, was a top 3 all-time Premier League season for spectacle.
Okay.
And a lot of that was to do with the vast number of goals.
And the fact that we had 3 teams jostling for the title, and we had those kind of also those point deduction wildcards getting thrown in that added to the drama.
I don't like that, though.
No, of course you didn't.
Worms.
Lots for us to discuss today. Of course, the big questions like, can anyone stop Man City? And what are Man United and Chelsea going to be doing this time around? We'll get onto all of that, but we're going to begin with the title race. Yeah, so part 1 today is all about the title race, which could make it the shortest part in pod history. What do you think, Adrian? Is there going to be one? Is Man City lined up as the favourite? What do you think?
Well, yeah, but there's definitely a title race. I mean, this Arsenal.
I've seen so many.
First game, you can say it's looking pretty tight at the top.
I mean, there was only 2 points in it last season, James. Look, I think Arsenal have got a fantastic chance. I do. I think this could be Arsenal's year. I do. Yeah,
Okay.
I do. I don't mind saying that.
In support of your argument, they are getting closer every season. 5 points behind City 2 campaigns ago. Last time out, only 2 points back.
Yeah.
The kind of counter to that is a little bit as we saw with Liverpool, that trying to match that incredible pace of Man City burns you out or can burn you out after a while. So is the danger that will happen this time around, having come so close?
There's always a danger, but it's a young squad that's very hungry and unbelievably motivated. Arteta's intense. Like, he's not going to allow standards to drop. He's going to keep pushing for improvements. And if Arsenal do improve again, which is what they've done every single year under Arteta, they'll get into the 90s. And if they get into the 90s, they've got a great chance of winning the title. So no, I mean, it could happen in answer to your question, but I believe in this team. And I also know that defensively, Arsenal are absolutely good enough to win the title. And I think strong defences give you the best possible chance of finishing top. And they've improved that with Calafiori coming in and Timber returning. So I'm weirdly confident. Yeah.
No, I mean, they've only let in 9 Premier League goals this year, which is pretty good. They are, as Adrian says, they're trying to improve their points total again. They would be the first team in Premier League history to improve it for 5 seasons in a row. Wow, that's never happened before. Nice. Obviously, it's quite hard to do that, but I kind of agree. I think they can. I think they sort of remind me of Liverpool in 2019 after they'd gone toe-to-toe with City and it'd been a really tight race. And City obviously prevailed, and then Liverpool came out the following season and just, won a lot of games. And Arsenal do have quite a tricky start, but I think if they can navigate that first sort of 4 or 5 games, they really could go on a really strong run. And they have improved each time. And you can't judge anything on pre-season, but they have looked very strong. And Arteta's made a few tweaks again. Calafiori created more chances from carries than any other defender in Serie A last season.
Are they one of the teams that you mentioned that still have a lot of work that they need to do on the transfer market?
I don't think so. Obviously, Mikel Merino is the target we know they probably want.
Right.
We've obviously found out that Martin Zubimendi doesn't really fancy going to Liverpool, which I think might help the Merino situation. So that might happen, fairly soon.
He was the the fellow with incredible flying splits header
and then did the
Euros.
celebration tribute to his dad, who scored in the same stadium.
Of course.
He is really good in the A's. He won more duels last season than any all but one player in the league, and more than any player in the Premier League. So add that.
Aerial duels.
Yeah. I mean, kind of on the left side, and I think Arsenal are trying to build the tallest team in the history of football, and they're getting close. I think they seem to have like a progression, and to contrast that with City do feel like they not stagnated, but it does feel like the sort of the end, more towards the end of a project.
And at some point, City will stop winning the league, and it could be this season. Like when it does happen, we won't necessarily see it coming months in advance, but they, as good as they were last season, they weren't perhaps the flamboyant team that they were 2 or 3 years earlier. I think in terms of the quality of their football, and this is something Pep Guardiola has done very deliberately, he's turned them into a much more sort of multifaceted team, much more sort of physically imposing team. But they don't impress you quite as much as they did in sort of seasons 2, 3, 4 of the Guardiola era. And as Adrian says, I mean, Arsenal have just done everything right for the last couple of seasons and been so close. And they were practically perfect last season. You go back to the second half of the campaign, and it was that home defeat against Aston Villa that cost them the title. They won, practically every other game, which is remarkable. But then I guess to Duncan's point, does the fact that, that they keep getting closer and haven't got over the line, does that make them more likely this season to finally get over the line, or have they already squandered that chance? But my sort of gut feeling is that this might be the season that, the City empire begins to kind of come apart at the seams. Really.
Adrian's positing Arsenal as stronger than last season, and it sounds that way. Are City in no way better, or maybe even not as strong as last year with the departure of Alvarez, yeah.
Well, Savinio's a good player. Obviously, a different type of player. He's a winger, flying winger, unbelievable pace. So he's a good pickup. I think City will surely invest that money, won't they? They'll bring in a forward to be the understudy for Erling Haaland. Who that's going to be, we don't know, of course.
The beauty of Alvarez was obviously he could fill in for De Bruyne and Haaland. Yeah. There's not many players that can do that. I think they need to now decide. I think they probably want either another Rodri or another striker. So I think that's probably where they'll go. But
plan B is the false nine.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people as well go, these big clubs should, they have all these expensive academies, they should use them. Well, City are probably the best team at doing that, bringing in, we saw McAtee play in the Community Shield. Oscar Bob, I think, is coming through, a big season for him. So yeah, I think they're not going to struggle, but I do think that it's I would envisage Arsenal and City being the main two again.
I mean, it's hard to make a case for City not being as good as they have been the last few years, but that doesn't mean that they won't be. That's my very profound take on this, and I won't hear anything else said about it.
I can hear the Liverpool fans sort of, bashing their devices at the moment.
Well, let's talk about Liverpool after I mention the story revealed in The Athletic last week that at a team dinner, Arteta hired professional pickpocketers, which is it's an interesting career path, isn't it? To steal players' phones and wallets. The idea was to teach his players to be alert and ready at all times. What do you make of that?
It's one of the funny things about Arteta and all the things we've learned about him over the last few years, and a lot of this came out in that Amazon documentary, is that you can be a manager who does things that are so David Brent, it is unreal, and still achieve huge success. Like Arteta has done loads of really naff stuff, but the players buy into it, and so it kind of works.
Arteta's like a mixture of every sort of Premier League manager. So you do have the Brendan Rodgers Brent style stuff. You do have the kind of Pep tactics. You do have the Moyes kind of focus on set pieces. You do. He even bought a Labrador for the training ground. He called it Win the Labrador. So
Win.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
As in WIN.
Yeah. As in go out and win. Like,
And the players walk the dog around the training ground. They they love it. Just because it's a family, you see.
Learning
James.
to hold on to a lead, perhaps.
Yeah, very good. It's just it's that sort of just going to work. It's more like going to sort of hang out with your family. I think that's the vibe he's creating.
If your family were pickpocketers.
The pickpocket thing is absolutely David Brent, isn't it? But look, Arsenal fans might cringe a little bit at it, but we'll let him do whatever he wants. It's working. Whatever he's doing, it's working. We're getting better every year. So long may that continue.
Okay. Liverpool then. Arne Slot in, and there's Slot to do. Is that right? Zubimendi not coming. What do they need to do, and what are their chances of doing it? And what happens if they don't do it? And how is it going to be with Arne Slot in there without the big welcoming arms of Jurgen Klopp around everyone's shoulders?
he has got short arms, yeah. I mean, it's a very interesting one because it's not like Liverpool's squad is bad, but he's going to come in and he's going to tweak things a little bit. I think they really did want to get Zubimendi. Obviously, there are some echoes of David Moyes going into Manchester United. Remember, they couldn't buy anyone that summer. He ended up buying Fellaini on transfer deadline day in a slight panic. I don't think Liverpool will be in quite the same panic, but...
Why did they need Zubimendi so much? What happens if they don't have somebody like that?
Well, I think they want to play McAllister a bit further forward, and Endo is good at sort of, winning the ball back, but Slot wants his sixes to play with a bit more progression. They don't really have anyone that...
No, that's the obvious position to fill, isn't it, for Liverpool? Yeah. They got Bajcetic, the youngster.
Yeah, and he could.
But
it is, and I think they're sort of saying, oh well, we won't buy anyone. Then it's like the squad's good.
Everyone keeps saying no to Liverpool because it was Caicedo last year, wasn't it? And Lavia did, and now it's Zubimendi. I get the Zubimendi thing because I think the pull of being a legend at Real Sociedad is pretty strong for him.
Quite refreshing actually as well, and this is not an anti-Liverpool thing, but to have a player who's like in the crosshairs of a big Premier League club say, actually, no, I'm quite happy here.
They've offered him a lot more money as well.
You tend to think that particularly when a big Premier League club shows an interest in a player, particularly abroad, knowing the riches on offer in England, you just sense, he'll end up going. So
it's a bit of an embarrassing start for Richard Hughes, isn't it? Is in that sort of position was he sporting director? I think he's in charge of this, and the first big target they've gone for actually wasn't that keen about coming. So you think, did they do enough homework? Did they've effectively wasted a month of this window chasing a guy that was quite not that bothered about leaving? So I think that's not a great reflection on his start.
But then last season, Alexis McAllister did play as a six and, reasonably well at the start of the season. By the end of the season, as Duncan was saying, Endo was playing in that position. Slot wants a more technical player in that role. And obviously, if you buy someone like Zubimendi to take over from Endo, then you free McAllister and Szoboszlai to play a bit further forward. But it's not like they don't have players who can play there. It's just a bit of a square peg round hole
and they've
situation.
talked about dropping Szoboszlai further back. But I just think it's... The Liverpool games in pre-season, they've been a lot more patient. The kind of mad final fling of Klopp transition season has been forgotten about. And there's I think Liverpool are probably going to be the most interesting team to look at the first few weeks because it's quite rare. We saw it last year with Spurs when you do get like a stylistic change over the summer, and obviously Spurs adapted to Postecoglou really well. And what was it, 8 wins and 2 draws in the first 10. So it doesn't mean Liverpool are going to start badly, but I just think Slot probably did imagine moving as Liverpool manager or head coach that he would, the club would be able to attract players. It's one of the reasons you might want to be in that position at Liverpool.
Yeah, I think they've got to be better defensively. They've got to protect Alisson if he's going to be the goalkeeper. I'm assuming he's going to be the number one still, isn't he? Because there was talk about Kelleher moving on. They got to protect Alisson. He was too busy last year. They faced way too many shots. I think he'll fix that. The key for their chances of winning the title is if Darwin Núñez can actually convert some of the chances that come his way, that could be the difference. Because they already score a lot of goals, but think how many he misses.
In career terms, has he been a consistently high percentage converter?
Not in the Premier League. For Benfica, he scored loads, but I don't know what his conversion rate was.
He was still under the XG generally. Okay. I mean, he has, he's a sort of he has more shots than anyone, but only a few of them. He hits what was it? He set a new record for woodwork hits last season as well in the Premier League.
Harvey Elliott, I think he's set.
Okay.
If you're looking for the sort of breakout Cole Palmer of the season, I'm going to flag up Harvey Elliott. I think he's going to do well.
Okay. When was the last time we had a Dutch manager succeed in the Premier League?
Well,
Ten Hag?
Yeah, FA Cup winning manager Erik Ten Hag.
Okay. There's your answer.
But no, it's true that Dutch coaches traditionally haven't always
At the level of
had
success that their
huge
clubs anticipate.
Yeah, and I think we discussed this last season. I'm trying to think who it was in relation to.
People said the same when Klopp took over about German managers, saying Felix Magath only just tied cheese to people's legs. So what do Germans know about our league? And Klopp did all right.
He did all right. Victor Please says, I just want to know what Duncan's brave prediction is going to be this year. Victor Please may be referencing Duncan's touting of Chelsea as being second place finishers last season.
Excellent work, by the way, to whoever dug out the screenshot from last season's corresponding pod.
Oh,
Probably got
Was
it
it
off.
us? Was it us three? Because
didn't see that.
I remember sitting opposite Duncan.
No, I wasn't here.
Yeah, saying what?
where did you see this?
On Twitter.
X. All right.
I mean, people don't remember the other predictions I made that also didn't come true, like Luton staying up. But anyway, this season I think Chelsea are going to finish. No.
Where do you think they're going to finish? We'll come on to Chelsea very, very shortly. Do you have a bold prediction?
Yeah, I think my prediction is that Fulham are going to be in the top 5 by Christmas.
What?
No, say top 5 at the end of the season.
No,
Come on,
finish.
see it through.
Let me finish, and then there'll be a crisis at one of our beloved big clubs, and Marco Silva will get poached.
Is this a hunch, or have you got like statistical evidence?
Is this a hunch, or do you somehow actually know? That would be terrifying, wouldn't it?
I mean, if I was
Where's
Biff Tannen
Fulham
with a
come
Sports
from?
Almanac, I wouldn't be sat here. I
know Emil Smith-Rowe is a good player, but come on, like it's a bit of a jump, isn't it?
We'll talk Fulham. I mean, do you want to talk about Fulham? Because who are going to be? Last season we had Bournemouth shaking things up. Aston Villa, big surprise. Who do you see? Well, I tell you what. Why don't we let Duncan explain his rationale, and we can explore just how good the Cottagers are going to be, and which other teams might surprise us for good and for bad. And next on this Totally Football Show. Woo! Listener, if you've got an urge to get in touch with us, this season we're inviting your missives on the erstwhile Twitter X. Use the handle @TheTotallyShow. You can actually email us as well. That used to be a thing, didn't it?
Old school.
Yeah,
I like it.
Totally@theathletic.com, that one is. Oh, we should mention the fixtures for the Title 3. City, they start at Chelsea. What an opening game that is. Do you remember what it was last season?
4-4?
4-4. It was the Cole Palmer. It was a penalty at the end, wasn't it? The first kind of...
In the rain, wasn't it?
Was it in the rain?
Very rainy.
Maybe
Yeah.
actually it was cold and then it became a...
Yeah, the accidental celebration.
Arsenal are going to be hosting Wolves, while Liverpool welcome Ipswich Town back to the Premier League. Bizarrely,
They
Ipswich...
go to Ipswich, I think.
Yeah, but they're welcoming them back to the Premier League. They don't welcome them to Anfield, that's true.
Ipswich are going to welcome them, and then Liverpool are going to welcome them back.
Yeah.
And then it'll be awkward because they'll go, no, we're
We're welcome. They've got all the welcome banners out. Yeah.
Lots of questions anyway from listeners. Majid Mohammed says, which players are set for their breakthrough season in 24-25? Is Harvey Elliott, has he not already had a bit of a breakthrough
I don't
season?
think so, because he hasn't ever truly been a regular under Jurgen Klopp. I think that he's shown real signs towards the end of last season of being sort of very comfortable in the team. He started to produce more and more in product. I just see him as someone that's going to start a lot more matches for Liverpool this season. Maybe as number 10. I saw him play there in pre-season against Arsenal and he was magnificent. I just think he's ready. He's at an age now. He's played enough games where he can have the confidence to be a star within that team. And until this point, he's just been the kid that gets the odd game.
Has he still got the same hairdo?
Yeah, it's a real curly sort of perm job, isn't it?
It is. Nice.
Yeah.
Cockapoo.
Zin, apparently. Yeah.
Who's going to be your breakout player?
I'm going to go for Leif Davis of
I was gonna
Ipswich.
say that.
Sorry, mate. Who is this ultra-attacking left-back whose forward forays are just central to the way that Ipswich play. To the extent that the entire sort of, starting 11 is configured to get the best out of him. He had 18 assists in the Championship last season, which I believe is some kind of record.
Yeah.
Duncan, can you confirm? Yeah. Duncan can confirm. And he's 24, I think 25 in December, something like that. So good age. And, not to get ahead of myself, he says, before promptly getting ahead of himself, but given England's left-sided problems in the defensive realm, sphere, zone, could he potentially turn himself into an England candidate? Heard it here first.
Duncan?
Well, I was going to go. You don't get many people called Leaf anymore, not since Leif Eriksen.
IF as well, which is unusual.
Obviously,
Because there's a woman who writes for someone really posh like the Spectator called Leif Arbuthnot. I've often thought has got the poshest name in known to man, but Lea.
Obviously, there was Leif Eriksen as well, who discovered America.
Viking.
Which is ironic because Leif Davis plays at one of the English clubs furthest away from America. So
that is ironic. Wasn't there a Leif Garrett? Was it not who sang "I Was Made for Dancing" all night long? I think.
I'm not sure.
It was a while ago. Less relevant, perhaps.
I've just googled it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Leif Garrett. An American actor, singer, and television personality.
Triple power.
Teen Idol later received much publicity for his drug abuse and legal troubles. The classic trajectory.
Needed to turn over a new leaf.
He did, if only.
We don't script this. Yeah.
So, that's enough breakout players, or have you got more?
Do you not prepare a backup? Come on.
Oh, I got some backups. I'm not sure Adam Wharton counts anymore, but I do think a lot of people that spent the early summer going, I really think Adam Wharton's good, are actually going to be tuning in and watching him closely for the first time.
Nice.
And Jay, I don't want to be cast as Mr. Fulham here, but Jay Stansfield, who I think had a good season in the Championship with Birmingham, one of the few players.
Going back to Birmingham, you know that, don't you?
Is it?
I think he might be.
Damn.
All right, here's another question. This one's for Ex-Foolishness. Ex-Foolishness would like a surprise non-Haaland Golden Boot winner shout, please.
Isak.
Okay.
Yeah, he is the next best. There's no doubt about it. I think of all the players that scored 15 goals last season.
What about Cole Palmer?
I like Cole Palmer, but he's not a striker, so I think
he won't repeat.
Yeah, I can't see him do that. Isak had the best conversion rate of all the people that scored 15 goals, except Mateta, who was brilliant. He was a bit of a breakout last year, wasn't he, Mateta? Yeah. So he is lethal. He'll probably play most weeks. Newcastle, sort of can concentrate on the Premier League. He does, yeah. So a long shot. I wouldn't have passed Spurs, maybe. Like you've got I think they'll be good this year, Spurs.
Oh, no, we're not going with long shot teams yet, Adrian.
No. I'm going for long shot goal scorers.
Oh, I see.
What about a Son Heung-min or a Dominic Solanke?
If you want to win the Golden Boot, you don't want long shots. You want 6-yard box mainly.
Yes, it's true. But yeah, they might get plenty.
I will say Diogo Jota.
Oh, nice.
Another man who gets injured too often. But if by some miracle he could stay fit, then...
Right.
Yeah.
And that could have an even bigger impact on Liverpool's chances of Darwin Núñez finding his shooting boots. And here's a question from me, because I kind of should have asked it before. Who do you think is actually going to win, then, the title? Tom?
I am going to say Arsenal.
Okay. Say it, then.
Arsenal. Well, I've said it now.
Arsenal.
Whoa!
Given my
Fulham?
record, Fulham, given my record of I'm going to say Man City in the hope that we get a bit of variety.
Oh, I see.
I'm going to curse Man City.
Right. Okay.
Beyond get relegated mid-season, of course.
I meant the Championship,
right? To the conference.
It's not happening.
The conference? What is this? 2008?
Sorry, can I say
Blue
that
Square
again?
Premier, mate.
All right. Well, listen, I'm agog for some more Fulham chat, and listener, you might be too. Adrian, you reacted. You scoffed when
There's
Duncan
so much
mentioned.
tradition now. 2 years in a row.
This is tradition. Yeah. Sorry, Duncan.
But I've seen you write on the Premier League's website. These are your words.
Yeah, go on.
I will plump for Fulham to be the surprise package in 24-25. I rate, says Adrian Clarke, head coach Marco Silva highly. So if he's given the funds to revamp his squad, it goes on for a while. Actually. You mentioned Emil Smith Rowe.
Yeah.
Oh, Ryan Sessegnon's back. And they're trying to sign Scott McTominay.
They were when at the
that no
time
longer
of
a
writing.
thing?
That seems
Okay.
to have gone a bit quiet. They're trying to sign Joachim Andersen at the moment from Palace. I think they are flexing their muscles.
Diego Carlos from Villa, maybe.
Yeah, and I do. The scoffing was because you said fifth, but like I can absolutely see
At the
Fulham
turn of the year.
oh yeah, of course, yeah. I can see them being up in the top half this year and improving. I do. I think that they've got. Even though they've lost Joao Palhinha, I think they can reinvent themselves a little bit this season.
Have lost some big players though. Palhinha most obviously, but also Tosin Adarabioyo's gone to Chelsea. He was sort of, nailed on starter at
That
centre
name
back.
again,
Bobby
Tom?
Tosin Adarabioyo. I mean, he calls himself Tosin on the back of his shirt, but it's still his surname. I don't want to get in trouble here, but
Right.
it's one of those where he doesn't like using his surname, but I think he does still have one legally.
Okay.
So, Bobby Di Cordova-Reid as well. He's gone. Not like, one of the most exciting names in the Premier League, perhaps, but someone who was an absolute key player for Fulham throughout last season. So I feel like Palhinha obviously needs replacing. And he was probably the best player outside the kind of conventional top six last season, maybe. He's certainly in the kind of top three. So he's a huge...
Probably go Ollie Watkins
huge loss.
ahead of him. Or do you mean the big six there, or the top six?
Let me think what will make what I've said sound the least stupid. Okay, I mean there are
he's a good
numerous.
player.
He was
He's a
a
good
Champions League level number 6
Yeah.
playing for Fulham, so he needs replacing, which they haven't done yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's
So
just a recovery merchant for me. But yeah,
But a very
Stats
good
monster,
one.
isn't he? Yeah.
Fulham begin their campaign
well, here we go.
against Manchester United.
Which memory fans will remember was Fulham's first game when they came up in the early 2000s under Al Fayed and in that era, and it was very enchanting back then. But I think they can go to Old Trafford, as many teams have in the last decade, and fancy their chances, I think.
Very nice. Who else do you see doing well in as I mentioned, the
In a
vein
surprise
of
kind of way.
Yeah, like a Bournemouth or a Villa this time around.
I'm going to go for Brighton.
Brighton?
I think, Brighton dipped last season badly, and I think the fact that there were mitigating circumstances. They lost two of their absolute best players in Mitoma and March, who I thought were brilliant. They've been in the top 6 before. De Zerbi undoubtedly lost interest. But there was a detachment towards the end of last season between him and the fans, the players. They sort of just treaded water towards the end of the campaign.
It was Europe as well.
It was, and the Europe factor, they don't have that this year. They've got the youngest manager, obviously, in the league, in Fabian Hürzeler, 31.
First manager born after the Premier League started.
Good
And
Lord.
He's younger than the Big Breakfast,
Wow.
which is
I
concerning.
don't know that the big breakfast is quite the metric of youth that you think.
Well,
it is.
for Duncan.
Surely something else
do
happened
you
30
not
years ago.
do you not
but-
rewatch old episodes on YouTube? Sig and Zag quality.
So
they've signed Minte from Newcastle.
freshen things up.
Yeah, exactly. He's definitely going to freshen up. He's had a good pre-season. He looks exciting. Weefer, I think is how you pronounce it. He's a very good central midfielder. He'll replace Fabian Gross. Pascal Gross, rather.
Where's Pascal Gross gone?
He's gone
Borussia
to
Dortmund.
Yeah,
Good move.
Yeah, so no, I think Brighton are capable of maybe gate crashing the top 6 if Chelsea, Man United, Villa, struggle.
Okay.
I'm going to second Adrian's shout for Brighton.
So 2 for Brighton, 1 for Fulham. Any other teams you see?
I mean, it's not really a huge shock, but I think what?
No, I've got my hand up for after you, but you go.
I don't know. I was going to say, I think Newcastle will be back this year.
Yeah.
I think Newcastle's going to be back this year.
Yeah, I think.
Why are they going to be back this year? What's different to last year?
Well, they don't have the Champions League to deal with. And that really did hamper them with injuries and fatigue and stuff. I think they're going to kind of do a weird swap with Villa. I think Villa will then slip into that thing of having... And Villa have spent the summer trying to revamp the squad and lower the average age. But, I think it's a big ask. And people may know, but there's like 2 extra Champions League games as well in the autumn. So, I think Newcastle, with their fancy new kits, will do well.
And also lack of injuries, or at least you'd think there would be fewer injury issues this season because they're not in the Champions League.
Okay.
I mean, Newcastle, I think, struggled from that almost more than anyone, whereas going into this season, I think apart from Sven Botman, who's still out. They're pretty much full strength. So, yeah, I think...
And if they get Gay as well.
Roaring back might well be on the agenda. Yeah, if they get more Gay as well, that would be...
And Livramento, and they're going to have more Cobham graduates than Chelsea, I think, this season, which is...
yeah, we'll be talking about Chelsea very,
nice
very
touch.
shortly, but my hand was up.
Sorry, yes.
My hand was up because I wanted to ask you for West Ham. West Ham under Lopetegui, a club who've been busier than almost anybody, not only bringing in yet another Basque manager in Lopetegui, which brings us to 4 now out of the 20, but also doing all sorts of transfer business. Max Kilman coming in from Wolves.
Big Nick Fulkrug.
That's such a move, isn't it? Such a West Ham move, many people feel.
Well, he's so West Ham. And also, as we know, I mean, one of the most enduring problem positions in the last 20 years of Premier League football is the West Ham centre-forward position. Obviously, Michail Antonio in recent years has kind of like been the go-to man. But every time they've spent big and tried to kind of fix that problem. Scamacca, two most obvious ones of recent years. Fulkrug, we all know what a fantastic player he was. Absolutely crucial for Dortmund in the Champions League last season. Had a really good Euros for Germany as well. Feels like he shouldn't have too much difficulty slotting into English football. You suspect David Moyes is probably slightly irked that he didn't get a chance to work with a centre forward like that, who probably would have suited him quite well. I think the issue with West Ham is how, I think they've had quite an exciting transfer window in terms of the different profiles of players they brought in. I think the interesting thing will be to see what exactly Julian Lopetegui does in terms of their football, because as we all know, there's the reason that Moyes ended up being moved on or mutual consented to pastures new, whatever it was because people felt that, for all he'd achieved, which is pretty significant, the football wasn't great and we need, a more dynamic coach to come and dynamise the football. I'm not sure the football is necessarily going to be all that dynamic. It will be a different, more sort of possession-based approach. It might not necessarily be kind of 100 miles an hour.
Lopetegui is kind of the Basque Moyes in some respects, so... I mean, what you'll know about Jean-Claire Todibo, because he's like a big prospect. It sounded like he wasn't ultra keen to go to West Ham, but he's there.
Well, he thought he was going to go to Juventus, because Juventus signed Kefren Turam from Nice, Todibo's teammate, and Todibo had his heart set on Juve. He'd been linked to Man United in the past, but has ended up going to West Ham. And absolutely brilliant player, like a very kind of modern centre back. And quite a stylish player as well, likes a risky shimmy on the edge of his own penalty area, plays with his socks rolled down, and feels like the kind of player who should probably, he went to Barcelona earlier in his career from Toulouse, so his ceiling is extremely high. He's like a Champions League level footballer in waiting, really, so I think West Ham have potentially got a really exciting player.
Excellent. They also brought in Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who we've seen quite a bit of in his various previous clubs, and Crescencio Somerville, who was Player of the Year in the Championship last season. Adrian?
Brilliant. Yeah, really exciting player. He'll play on the left, loves to take defenders on. He'll cut inside onto his right foot and look to bend shots into the far corner. He must have got double figures alone with that move last season. So, with Somerville, Fulkrug, maybe Kudus playing off him, and Bowen on the right, you've got a formidable front four there that has to be respected. So, I think Lopetegui would be crazy not to play a slightly more attacking brand of football, because you want those 4 guys on the ball, right? You don't want... That was the problem before. The forward players just didn't get enough touches because they spent most of the game defending their own 18-yard box. So they'll play higher at the pitch and be more entertaining. Will they concede more? Maybe, but it's, by the sounds of it, Todibo is a good player, and Kilman is too. So I think West Ham should improve.
Okay, what's the situation with Lucas Paquetá at the moment? Where are we on his?
He should be able to play for pretty much the whole season. So the latest report that I saw in the Times suggested that the case is so complex and spans so many different countries and involves so many different people,
right,
that by the time the investigators have kind of gathered together all the different elements, it's going to be probably next year. Wow. So as things stand, it looks like he's going to be available for most of the season.
All right. Well, there's some teams who we think are going to improve on last time out, but who's going to be doing a Man United or a Chelsea? I know Man United won the FA Cup. All right, doing a Chelsea this time
I think you
round?
can still say doing a Man United.
Yeah?
I think the FA Cup was a plaster across a fairly gaping wound, but I guess we will.
Might
we will
it be
see.
this time around Man United and Chelsea?
I mean, quite possibly. I mean, yeah, United are fascinating. I thought one of the most striking images from the Community Shield was that shot we got pre-kickoff of all the suits in the posh seats. And I think United, more than almost any other big English club, have, kind of represented the cult of the manager for so long. And one of the big issues they've had over the last 10 years is that, they haven't yet found a way to move on from, their greatest ever manager. And yet here we had Dave Brailsford, Omar Barada, Dan Ashworth, Jason Wilcox side by side. And that is now where the power lies at Manchester United. And we know that Erik Ten Hag, despite the fact that he's still there, despite the fact he's won, a cup in each of the last 2 seasons, is still on a bit of a tightrope.
They've not only, as you say, got this phalanx of directors, they've also brought in other managers to be on the bench with them. Like Ruud van Nistelrooy and who's the
other one?
Yeah, the other one. But two people that were actual managers, which should help in the short term. But you imagine if they do struggle, then that's
Okay. They have done some business.
Yes. Yes.
And might do some more.
They brought in Josh Xerxes from Bologna, who was very good last year, although hasn't really been cited much in pre-season. They also brought in the highly rated Lenny Yoro, beating Real Madrid, no less, to the signature. And I saw him look quite good against Rangers. And then he broke a bone in his foot.
Out for 3 months. But De Ligt's come in. Has that gone?
I don't think it's been announced yet, but
Okay.
it looks like De Ligt and Mazraoui are coming in from Bayern. I'm guessing they probably wouldn't have gone for De Ligt if it wasn't for the Euro
They're going to have a
injury,
lot
although-
of once everyone's fit, which is a big caveat, but they will have a lot of centre-backs.
Our last poor Euro, I think.
I'm not sure. De Ligt came through Manchester Airport holding a box of after eights. I don't know why.
Okay.
Fair play.
Sophisticated gentleman, clearly.
Ferrero Rocher for me, but fine.
Maybe for the day after they play Arsenal. I don't know.
I thought one of the interesting things about the way that United played in the Community Shield was the kind of very deliberate focus on building up from the back. And I think the fact that you now, like previously when Ten Hag tried to introduce that and then like promptly abandoned it, you kind of felt like he was doing it and the players were probably a little bit resistant. And one of the United's biggest problems was they signed a goalkeeper who is supposedly very good with the ball at his feet, but don't have any centre-backs who are. The fact that United played in that way throughout the game, despite the fact it kind of, coughed up a couple of chances for City when they cocked it up, suggests that is now at the absolute heart of this new doctrine.
Yeah.
And I guess, the success of the season may well depend on the success to which or the extent to which Ten Hag succeeds in kind of implementing that.
Yeah, I think the bare minimum you can expect from Ten Hag this season is to finally implement a clear tactical philosophy, because he hasn't. It's been a mess so far. Every time he's tried to, he's given up on it, as Tom just said.
Well, the Brentford game, and they lost 4-0.
Yeah, exactly. So there was no identity about United, but that's what he has to do that. But yeah, he also has to get better results, and I don't know.
No,
he's signed some good defenders, hasn't he? And they needed to improve that, but I don't think it's enough. I think the gap is so cavernous between United and the top three.
8th last season.
Yeah.
Was that the worst ever in the Premier League?
Ever in the Premier League since 1990.
They were by and large abysmal last season,
Right.
And I just think there's too big a gap to ask them to go from 60 points into sort of 75, 80.
You took
this season.
top 4 chances you don't see.
I think outsiders for top 4.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What,
I mean, I was slightly staggered by the extent to which a fairly significant number of United fans allowed themselves to be mollified by the fact that United won the FA Cup. And they were brilliant in the final. I mean, it was one of the best performances of the entire season. Yeah. And Ten Hag came up with a system, no centre forwards, that worked really well. But everything else about the season was an absolute disaster. As Adrian said, I mean, their football was so bad. And after every game, Ten Hag came out and kind of found some positives to cling to. I think he's done very well to hang on to his job. I get it's difficult to sack a guy who's just won the FA Cup, even though it didn't stop them sacking poor Louis van Gaal in 2016 or whatever it was. But I don't see a huge grounds for optimism in terms of the football that United might suddenly start playing.
I think fans of Ruud van Nistelrooy post-match interviews might be having a better season than they think.
Is that a little watch this space?
Or Marco Silva.
Oh, Marco Silva, yeah.
Hey, speaking of getting new bosses in, what about Chelsea? So Enzo Maresca's in. He's their 5th manager since Todd Burley came in 2 years ago. About that. Pre-season, they haven't exactly impressed. Is that fair?
Yeah.
A lot of people are a little bit puzzled by their current economic situation, by which they've had to basically move out loads of players who you would not expect them to be kicking out. Kicking out, for example, Conor Gallagher, who is off to Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, they're in that PSR vortex where they, when you sell a player that came through your academy, it's pure profit. But then by doing that, it opens up quite a lot of space to then go and buy Pedro Neto. And obviously Maresca's come in. He wants to play a different style of football, and that hasn't really gone that well in pre-season. You shouldn't really judge a team on pre-season, but I think a lot of Chelsea fans are pretty sceptical right now. It's rare to see a team of the size of Chelsea start a season with such pessimism.
And also having just taken such a radical lurch in another direction again, having been, Potter's the man,
pretty well.
Pochettino's, and they did end the season well. I mean, the form team at the back end of the campaign, which enabled them to finish 6th, get into the Conference League playoff round, and then having to rip everything up and start again with a coach who, obviously, worked wonders at Leicester, but with an extremely specific playing style.
Which Leicester fans didn't even like that much.
Which Leicester fans didn't even like all that much. And again, it's just an awful lot for any group of players to take on board that kind of new approach, let alone a group of players who are about 55 strong, with an average age of about 12, and who are having new teammates walk through the door about every half an hour. I mean, it does look extremely muddled.
Maresca's come out with a few worrying statements, I think, for some Chelsea fans, sort of saying about Palmer, and said, he's good because of what he learnt in the youth team at City, and that he has to show the discipline that I want from players, that sort of thing, which... If Chelsea's main strength last season was how sort of free and brilliant Palmer was, so I think that could be a real flashpoint if his tactics sort of nullify Palmer over the start of the season. I think that's going to become a real issue. It
is interesting, yeah. His style of play is really about dominating the middle of the pitch and then feeding wingers to go 1v1. He keeps his wingers really high and wide, which is why I think he went for Neto. And obviously he's got other options there with Sterling and Mudryk and Madueke.
Would Nkunku fit into that role?
No, I think Nkunku, for me, Nkunku's a number 10, really. Okay. But he might have to use him up front, depending on how bad or good Jackson is. But where do you fit Cole Palmer in it? It's as kind of as an 8, I guess, in his setup, or as a number 10. So, yeah, it will be fascinating. On the point Tom made, I just think you can't really say anything other than Chelsea's ownership don't seem to know what they're doing. There's no form, there's no plan here, no coherent planning. They're just going out and signing the next big thing. So they're taking punts on whiz kids left, right, and centre and giving them 7-year deals.
Jean Felix, by the way, how does that fit into the whole?
And they gave Poch, by the way. Poch had a 2-year contract, didn't he? And they give Maresca a 5-year contract. I mean, where's the logic in that? When you look at their respective careers, they haven't got a Scooby, Chelsea's owners, but they do have a lot of talent.
Scooby Doo by the end of the window.
Yeah, exactly. But they do have a lot of talent, and talent might get them into a respectable position. But I think as a club, they're
how many managers
case.
will they have this season? Do you think?
I think they have more than one.
Okay.
Minimum 3, I think.
I mean, we've
Not
obviously
counting
got
caretakers.
We've obviously got the historical example of Frank de Boer at Crystal Palace, which was what 4 games I think he got in, and they were like, "Yeah, this isn't working."
No, he had
Yeah, didn't he have
7?
6?
Didn't he?
It was 7, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wasn't it 7?
I think it was.
Wasn't it 007?
Oh, producer Charlie's just put his head around the door.
Put us all in our place.
Well, not me.
Well, he put you in your place in the
He had
sense that you
4
were
games,
right.
But Crystal Palace didn't win any of their first 7. JB says, who do the panel think will be the first Premier League manager to leave this season? Bonus points for correctly predicting the circumstances as to why.
Maresca,
Yes.
during the September international break, via a billboard
That's what?
It's very Cluedo,
that
this.
Todd Bowley pays for on
Yeah,
on the corner of Stamford Bridge.
I'm not sure if JB was looking for a kind of Phil Collins via fax style.
Well, it's what he's got.
I think it was the circumstances that leads to the decision being taken rather than the way it was communicated. But hey, that works. That works. Maresca's probably a popular shout. A lot of people saying Rossa Martin at Saints as well.
Yeah, I would. No, I think he did great last season, Russell Martin. So I think he deserves a little bit longer. I think it's a shootout, isn't it, between Maresca and Ten Hag? I just think that with Ruud van Nistelrooy sort of breathing over his shoulder, that's going to add a little bit of pressure there. And I could see that kind of change being made before Christmas.
All right, then.
I think it'll be Marco Silva after he hears this podcast because we're like, I need to get ready for my next job.
You're ready. Should we finish off this part by asking Adrian where he thinks Spurs are going to finish this year? Adrian.
You can do. And look, putting allegiances to one side, I'm actually quite confident that Tottenham will finish 4th this season in
Top
the Champions
4?
League. I find it amazing, actually staggering, that Chelsea are considered more likely, according to the odds, to finish in the top 4 than Tottenham.
Are they really?
I think Newcastle are ahead of Tottenham in that betting, and I think Manchester United are as well. I don't get that. I think that Postecoglou did a brilliant job last season, considering he's inherited a team without Harry Kane, one of the club's greatest ever players, and he revamped the playing style completely. Yes, there were some car crash moments and games where the high line got caught out, but I think that by and large he was a big success, and that he will invest more between now and the end of the window. He's got Solanke in,
Right.
Yeah.
To what extent does that fill that Harry Kane shaped hole you referenced?
Well, no one can replace Harry Kane, but it's a start. I think he'd be miles better than Richarlison there. And you've got Son, and you've got Kulusevski, you've got Werner. Brennan Johnson, Maddison. There's a lot of firepower there.
Don't forget Mikey Moore.
A lot of firepower there. I think they'll improve the depth of the defence, get quicker guys, so that if Van der Ven and Romero are missing, their tactics aren't completely ruined. So yeah, I think, and let's face it, they were 2 points off last year, Villa.
2 points.
Only 2 points.
2 points.
So I think Spurs are. This is a great opportunity. We've seen Newcastle do it. We've seen Villa do it. I think Spurs will do it this year.
I'm looking forward to seeing what Spurs do in Postecoglou's second season. I think Solanke is a really interesting signing. My one kind of concern about Spurs is defensively, their weakness became so apparent last season when it came to dealing with set pieces that every team realised that was how they could be hurt. And it kind of felt from like the midpoint of the season on, every team that played against Spurs just whipped in every corner and free kick that they got within the vicinity of Spurs' goal. And, Vicario was shown to be a goalkeeper, like a lot of Italian goalkeepers, who struggle to, dominate their penalty area. And I'm not sure what Spurs can do to stop that happening. I mean, I guess they just protect him a little bit better. But if you've got skilled set piece takers who are pinging in every corner and every free kick, like right on top of his head, with a load of players charging in. And when Postecoglou was asked about it, he was a little bit dismissive about the importance of preparing for defensive set pieces, which I think he might have to revisit if Spurs are going to have.
I think to Tom's point as well, that they're philosophically, all the top teams now, maybe except Spurs, focus so much on set pieces that I think that's removed a kind of weapon for some of the mid-table teams. Your Brentfords, that was a real strength for them. But I saw Arsenal debut a couple of new corner routines of the day, and
Did you?
Liverpool have got a very fun one to look out for, where they basically put the whole team on the opposite corner of the penalty box to the corner, and then everyone just charges about like the red arrows. So yeah, clubs are now, it's a massive part of the game. So Spurs would be remiss not to have spent the summer at least doing a bit of practice.
Duncan, top four?
Well, I've said City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Spurs.
Yeah. Tom?
I come up with a prototype top four the other day, and then I noticed on Twitter that it was exactly the same as Michael Owen's predicted top four, and he was getting absolute pelters for it.
Was he? Go on.
But
what was it then?
my top four was Arsenal, Liverpool, Villa, City.
City fourth. Is
So
that
the same
points?
top four as this season, but a little kind of
Right.
rejigged.
Is that because of a points penalty, or you see something quite significant?
I kind of feel like it
happening?
might be. It might be a little bit like the 2019-20 season when they just kind of fell off a cliff a little bit, and Liverpool.
Can I just say that I would absolutely be against the points penalty for City mid-season. Arsenal don't want to win the league that way. Arsenal want to win the league properly. Punish them at the end of the season.
Fair enough. Adrian.
Like the way they did getting back into the
punished.
top flight after the war, yeah?
I can't remember that.
Go on, Duncan. Tell us the story.
Well, when the football was suspended for the First World War, Arsenal the previous season, 1914-15, had finished sixth in the second tier, but managed to get promoted ahead of Spurs, who should have gone up, due to some backroom wrangling. So, different times.
Different times. Adrian, your top four?
Arsenal, City, Liverpool, Spurs.
Bingo. We'll be talking about maybe the bottom three next on the Totally Football Show. Listener, we can't get enough of Adrian. That's why we have him on the Athletic FC's Arsenal podcast, Handbrake Off. When's that out, Adrian?
It's great, isn't it? Handbrake Off. Love it.
Yeah,
Love that pod.
Twice a week.
We did one yesterday, so we did one on Monday.
Yeah.
Another one on Thursday.
Woof.
And we've got a live show as well coming up in September.
Live show.
I can't remember the date, but the tickets are. I think there's a handful of tickets left. So
Are there a handful of tickets left?
not much more than a handful, but yeah, get your hands on them if you're a gooner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got a Totally Football Show live show. I know the date of this, so I hope it's not the same. I'm saying it. Oh, yeah, it's the 8th of October. We're going to be doing ours at the Leicester Square Theatre. Where's yours?
Same. Yeah.
Are you in Leicester Square Theatre as well?
Yeah. It's in September.
Oh, okay. Who's on ours? Oh, Duncan, you're in.
Yeah.
Apparently I've been selected. Julian Laurens and James Horncastle. That's the panel. Probably loads of tickets left. No, apparently not. Apparently not. I'm not sure exactly how many, but very few. That's, I think, what Charlie's gesture meant. So hurry. Run, don't walk to leicestersquaretheatre.com to book your seat. What's that, Adrian?
23rd of September.
23rd of September for Handbrake Off.
It's a
Or if
Monday
you want
night.
to save up and just see the Totally Football Show live, that's another option. We will be talking about Arsenal on that one as well.
I don't think we should, to be honest.
Really? Yeah, we can talk about Arsenal and all the other ones. Thursday afternoon, speaking of James Horncastle and Julian Laurens, sorry, listen, I know you want to get on to the chat, but just to mention, we're going to be doing our first Euro pod of the season. Fans of lineup changes will be excited to know that Seb Stafford-Bloor will be our Bundesliga fellow. And Paul Ballus is going to be joining us from Barcelona. Boy, we can have a lot to talk about this time around, not least what Real Madrid get up to Wednesday night against Atalanta in the Super Cup. Love a Super Cup. Tom, you a Super Cup fan?
Oh yeah, big time, big time. Fond memories of having attended.
Did you go?
Real Madrid against Sevilla in Cardiff in 2014. James Rodriguez's Madrid
really?
debut, which was
Yeah.
hotly anticipated off the back of his World Cup exploits that summer.
Stunning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, right. Let's talk about the three clubs rejoining the Premier League this season. You got the Championship title holders Leicester City, who are back after a one-year hiatus. They're now managed by Steve Cooper. Also back after a brief dip are Southampton, while Ipswich Town make their return after a 22-year absence. As mentioned, they will be welcoming Liverpool to, what's their ground called? Portman Road. There we go, Portman Road. It's their first Premier League fixture in over 22 years. Do you know what the last one was? Their last game in the Premier League?
I don't know.
They got beaten by Liverpool 5-0, condemning them to relegation.
I've come full circle.
Very, very much so.
If they win 5-0, they'll have come full circle.
Yes. Those are the three teams coming up. Last season, the three promoted sides all went back down again, which, to many people's surprise, was only the second time it had ever happened in the Premier League era. Tom?
Can I just say, before we get into this, there are too many Southern teams in the Premier League this season.
Southern teams.
I think it needs to be said. I think
There's
if Leeds had won the
teams.
playoff final, that would have balanced things up a little bit. Nothing against Southampton,
Right.
fine part of the world, lovely people, but it's getting too Southern.
You don't take Southern sides as seriously as Northern sides?
Too many. A few, but there's loads in London. We've got three South Coast
looking
clubs.
at a bit UCAS form.
That's too many. That's at least too many, I think.
Yeah, they
for
should
me.
amalgamate the clubs into one. We've said this before.
Yeah, South Coast FC.
Only
Pick a bit from the mascot from Southampton, the stadium
Racing
from Brighton
Solent.
or something. There you go.
Atletico C.
Atletico. C.
There's only been one. Sorry, a second. There's a good piece by Michael Walker on The Athletic right now about that very subject.
What subject? Of amalgamating
of the
Southern
loss?
sides?
No, not about that. That'll never be published. About the lack of Northern teams in the Premier League and how it's declined. And it's actually only in the history of English top flight football. There's only been one season with fewer, and that was 1983-84.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you put it down to? Is it just a quirk?
It's partly a quirk, but it's also, I think, if you look at clubs like Brighton and Southampton, and even teams like Brentford, they've kind of advanced because they have really good academies. Teams like Southampton and Brighton have got massive catchment areas as well, and it's become as money's gone into kind of getting those players. I think sort of traditional heartlands of football have struggled.
And it's also overseas investment. The South is more attractive to overseas investors because of its proximity to London. The North is consequently less attractive because it's that bit further away.
Further away. Everton, we've seen missing out on investment with the potential acquisition by the Friedkins. Freaking bad news. Yeah. Who do you think is going to be going down then?
You looking at me?
Yeah.
I think that you can't look beyond Leicester because of the impending points deduction or likely points deduction. We don't know how big it'll be. But yeah, I really like Steve Cooper, but they have lost a good player in Dewsbury Hall. Vardy is still their best striker.
Good Lord.
They'll need someone else surely before the close of the window. So Leicester, reluctantly. I also think Southampton, they still don't have a first-choice goalkeeper, which staggers me. Their goalie's injured until, I think, Christmas. So they've got their third-choice goalie, who got them over the line in the playoffs, McCarthy. He's decent, but I just think, there's a big position. They haven't made that many moves in the market. They play a possession-based game, and that's going to be really hard to implement at the higher level. So I think Southampton will go, and I'm going to chuck in a little wild card, Brentford.
Why, Adrian?
Because they went downhill quite a lot last season, in my opinion. They were much easier to play against than before, less abrasive. A bit of a soft touch sometimes. Tony, what's going on? The guy they've signed to replace him is out until 2025. They did bring in Fabio Carvalho, who's a good player, but kind of unproven over the course of a season in the Premier League. I just think that there's been a deterioration at Brentford. And I think with Thomas Frank, who's brilliant and we like him, he's a great coach. Has he been there too long? Sometimes the same voice can become a little bit, it can make a dressing room flat. And it feels like, to me, as if they're sort of not going anywhere at the moment. The progression has stopped at Brentford. So I think they might struggle. And they were 16th, weren't they, last year? They weren't far away.
But finished 13 points above the relegation zone.
True.
I think it's difficult this season to pinpoint clubs that are going to struggle aside from the promoted trio. Yeah. I think you can make a case for every other club sort of kicking on in some way. I think there are question marks about Brentford, but I think one thing that will help is having kind of key players available who weren't available last season. Aaron Hickey and Rico Henry, the two first-choice fullbacks, basically missed the entirety of the season and weren't really replaced. They're both getting back to fitness, might not make the opening game, but will be back pretty soon. The Tony issue has not yet been resolved, but they did show in his absence that with Visser and Bemo, even like Kevin Shard occasionally, that they are capable of scoring goals without him. So I think if you have to pick out teams who are liable to be drawn into the relegation battle, I think Brentford are an obvious one to kind of settle upon, but I do think there is reason to think that they will be better than they were last season.
Okay, Duncan?
Yeah, I sort of agree with Brentford. I also think Forest could have issues, and Wolves as well. Wolves ended the season quite badly. But I think again, with two factors, we don't know which teams might get PSR penalties again at some point, which kind of, it's really unsatisfying knowing that might come. And also, we don't know how good the promoted teams are. And I think it would be quite a worrying sign if the three that came up went down for 2 seasons in a row. That really would kind of speak to quite a worrying chasm, especially when in Leicester and Southampton's case, they'd only just gone down. So I do hope at least one promoted team kick on. Hopefully, Ipswich could do.
Yeah. Ipswich would be a great story. They've recruited basically some of the best young players that the Championship has had in recent years. So have they done that with a possible relegation in mind so that they come back even stronger next year? Or have they done it, is that just their tactical approach to it? I think they'll score a lot of goals. They've scored stacks in League One, stacks in the Championship. Obviously tougher to do that in the Premier League, but I think they will attack games. It's just whether they can keep out the goals at the other end, and that, I'm afraid, will possibly be their undoing. But I just think they might win more games than some of the others.
They remind me a little bit. Do you remember when Blackpool came up?
Yeah.
There was a bit like that. Yeah. And Blackpool started really well and got some good results, scored loads of goals, let lots in, but then they didn't quite, they just went down, and they sort of sunk lower and lower and lower. You can kind of imagine Ipswich doing that. But yeah, I hope it's that. They play a slightly different style of football to a lot of teams, quite central.
Very nice, very nice. They begin, as mentioned, with Liverpool. Full fixture list is kicking off on Friday with Man United against Fulham. Saturday lunchtime is the Ipswich-Liverpool game. Saturday at 3, you've got Arsenal-Wolves, Newcastle against Saints, Forest-Bournemouth, and Everton-Brighton. And then at 5:30 on Saturday, West Ham face Villa. Crikey. Sunday, Brentford against Palace. Interesting to see how Palace do with the proper pre-season under the tutelage of Oliver Glasner. That's Sunday 2:00, and it's followed by Chelsea Man City. You have to wait for Monday night to see Spurs debut as they travel to the King Power Stadium to take on Leicester. Crikey. Which game are you most excited about, Tom?
Well, I thought I'd mention Everton,
Yes.
Brighton, because we've not really talked about Everton yet. But Everton obviously had the trauma last season of the points deductions, etc. But if you remove the points deduction, they would have finished level on points with Brighton in 11th. Obviously, they were one of the most effective defensive units in the league, and as things stand, Jared Branthwaite is still there. Amadou Onana has gone to Villa, but I wouldn't have thought that they're going to be much weaker defensively. I think the issue for Everton again will be who's going to score goals, because they're still relying on Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Beto up front. Neither of whom had good seasons last time out. I'm not sure whether they've been linked to any other strikers or whether any other strikers look imminent. So I would have thought they'll be comfortably safe, assuming that that they avoid any more points deductions. But it's hard to see them seriously kicking on if they don't figure out a way of scoring more goals.
Aye.
I'm looking forward to United Fulham on the Friday night.
Yeah.
I worked on that game last year, and Fulham were brilliant. They beat them. They beat Manchester United 2-1. Played superbly on the counter attack. Iwobi, I think, got the winner late on. And I just think that it could be a really exciting match. I think Fulham will take it to United. and cause them some problems. But equally, United could turn it on. It's a feel-good factor after winning the FA Cup, of course. So I think that's going to tell us a bit about Manchester United.
Duncan.
I mean, first I should point out, giving Hurzeler Sean Dyche first up away from home is a lovely touch by the fixture computer. Fair play, hats off. Looking forward to West Ham Villa, actually. I think, we touched on both teams, but I just think managers the quality of Lopetegui and Emery, really high quality managers.
Basque derby as well.
Well, it's a Basque Classico, Basico.
Could they tactic one another out, though? Could it be a bit like they worried too much about the other one?
The ball doesn't come out the centre circle, but I just think it's, both these clubs have their fan bases have been looking for progress for a long time, and I think they're both, obviously Villa a bit more at the moment, but they're both enjoying, hopefully, good times. Yeah,
can I just drop in a fascinating tactic from Villa in the transfer market to buy back kids that they let go? I don't know if you saw this, but Cameron Archer was their sort of, not wonder kid, but he was the big sort of new Jermaine Defoe type striker. And they let him go, and then he's done very well elsewhere, and they've bought him back. And then the same happened with Jadon Philogene, who was brilliant in last year's pre-season, but not brilliant enough for Emery to play him. So he sold him to Hull, but they had a little clause in there that gave them the chance to match any bid that came in for Philogene. And Ipswich bid quite a lot of money for Philogene, and Villa decided, actually, we might have made a mistake there. We'd like to have you back. It's up to you. And Philogene has gone back. So, two really interesting reacquisitions.
I think the big issue for Villa will be how they cope with life without Douglas Luiz, who was such a key man last season. They brought in Ross Barkley from Luton, which is quite a funny one because obviously he was at Villa previously, but in the days when he was still trying to, convince everyone that he was a number 10, and whereas, at Luton he sort of reinvented himself very effectively as this, swaggering, deep-lying playmaker. They've also got Amadou Onana from Everton, who'll bring, sort of physical impact and the kind of box-to-box qualities, but I don't know whether between the two of them that will be enough to kind of replace what they've lost with Luiz going to Juve. I also feel like I need to justify my prediction of Villa finishing third when they've got a Champions League campaign to cope with as well.
Yeah.
And
ahead of Man City.
Ahead of Man City, yeah. Now that I say it out loud, I did say.
I
just mean like
I don't have to go through with it,
but I just kind of feel like you get to this point prior to every season, and everyone ends up predicting almost the exact same things. Right. Everyone's kind of predicted table looks the same, and it never ends up like that. Right. And so
well, I tried
why
last year, mate, and let me tell you, people don't let it go.
Yeah, I should have learned from Duncan. Well, yeah, we'll see how this one goes.
Magnificent. We will, starting from Friday. And Sunday night, straight after Chelsea Man City, we'll be in doing a Totally Football show, our first post-game Sunday show of the brand new season. Will that show be live streamed? Yes. Yeah, you can actually watch our fumbling attempts to nail that podcast on our YouTube channel live. So there's something, I think that probably is all the pre-season previewing stuff we should do. We should just let some football happen and transfer stuff and that. In fact, let me just get all this and that. It will be, yeah. For today, though, that's it. So many thanks, Adrian, for coming in.
No problem.
Tom as well.
Pleasure, as always.
Love your new look.
Oh, well, maybe I'll keep it.
Yep. Duncan, magnificent as always. Listener, thank you so very much. And Rachel and producer Charlie in the booth. Do join us Sunday or Monday if you want to wait for then. For now, from all of us here, it's goodbye. Hello there. If you've enjoyed this video, why not subscribe to this channel? The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.